we're just going to come back full swing from our hiatus. Let's let the music roll.
Because there's a handful of people actually run everything. That's true. It's provable. Not conspiracy.
It's all about control. To them we just cattle, numbers, battling each other while they creeping in the shadows, scheming, plotting, clocking your every move, locked in your mind, brainwashed until it's rocking. Got the population operating as they want them, symbolically mocking them, thinking nothing can stop them. So open your eyes to the lies of the evil, the poison in the minds and the lives of your people. And every time they lead you down the line to deceive you, and by then it's always too late to see through the veil that they hide behind, cause your third eye is blind. Better take a stand, we running out of time. Ain't nobody coming to save us, fuck what you had in mind. Arm yourself with the truth and jump behind the battle line. Can we turn it around? Yeah, it's possible. Divided we'll all fall, but united we're unstoppable. This is for the world, this is for the masses, attached to the strings being pulled by puppet masters. This is for the youth, searching for the proof, keep on looking for the clues, I'll provide you with some truth. This is for the ones waking up from the spell, beginning to discover themselves. Yeah, this is for the youth, searching for the truth, keep on looking for the clues, I'll provide you with some proof. This is for the world. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Hello. And I'm back from a short hiatus. And not that's my daughter in the background. And let's see here. Got some new equipment tonight. Hopefully we can do this the right way. First time coming out swinging. If you are watching this and you want to call in later on, there will be a call-in section to the show from now on if I have this calibrated correctly. So go to freeyourmindne.com/live and you will be able to, you will indeed be able to participate in the call-in segment of the show. And let me see here. Without any further ado, let's get into what we are going to be getting into tonight. And so this is a little out of date, but I haven't really been doing my own thing in a while, so like that's why, hold on 1 second here. Something's going on with the camera again. I haven't used OBS in a while either. Let me see if I can reconfigure that for just a second. I'm gonna pop off, pop back on, configure the video. Let's see here. Resolution. Yeah, let's do that. Maybe that'll fix the problem. All right. So, as I was saying, I have been off the air for quite a while, and boy, have there been some developments since the last time I streamed solo, or even had a guest. And there goes the camera again. You know what, folks? We're just going to do this live. We're going to go back in here, and we're going to... this is really annoying, but it's going to be okay. Let me see if I can... Let's see here. Configure the video. Device default. What a way to start off, coming back. See, it's still glitching out. Let me remove that. You guys can still hear me, of course. We're going to just add it back in. Maybe that'll be something. Maybe that'll do something. Ooh. God dang. All right. Let's get that set up here. Okay, so we're just going to switch over to the other screen now anyways. So by the title card, if you saw it, then you should not be surprised. The subject of the show this evening is going to be about this pandemic amnesty. All right. Oh, wow. They changed it. They changed this part here. It said before, I wish I had it pulled up, but it said before, that part that I highlighted there, it did not say that before. It said something along the lines of, we all made mistakes when we were in the dark about COVID. And since then, The Atlantic, who is a very reputable company, just kidding, about news, very reputable source for news, they've changed the tagline about this. It said, we all made mistakes when we were in the dark about COVID. And it's by Emily Oster. And I want to just read this aloud. So this was published on October 31st, Halloween, 2022. And by the way, today is November 19th, 2022. And not only are we back from hiatus, but this marks the 3rd anniversary of me podcasting. So it's been a solid 3 years since the first time I laid down a recording device and decided to start sharing my viewpoint and knowledge with the world. So here to that. Let's continue on reading this pandemic amnesty, this declaration for amnesty or whatever. In April 2020, with nothing else to do, my family took an enormous number of hikes. We all wore cloth masks that I had made myself. Whoop-de-doo. We had a family hand signal, which the person in the front would use if someone was approaching on the trail and we needed to put on our masks. Once, when another child got too close to my then 4-year-old son on a bridge, he yelled at her, "Social distancing." These precautions were totally misguided. Yes, they were. In April 2020, no one got the coronavirus from passing someone else hiking. No, they did not. Outdoor transmission was vanishingly rare, almost non-existent actually would be. Actually, it is non-existent, but anyways, our cloth masks made out of old bandanas wouldn't have done anything anyway. But the thing is, we didn't know. See, that's the first point. That's the first point of contention within this article. But the thing is, we didn't know. No, it's not that you didn't know. It's you chose not to listen. You see, there were plenty of people that were providing good sources and good data to show the contrary to what you chose to get on board and believe. There's plenty of people that knew, but you chose to ignore that. You chose to call people like myself and people like my friends crazy, kooky conspiracy theorists. You othered us, and you chose to hide your head in the fucking sand and not look at opposing viewpoints for your own, cognitive ability to see a situation from a holistic sense, eclectic sense of collecting information from multiple sources and basing what your actions are off of that. It's doing it here too. We're gonna take a break from my ranting, get rid of the camera, and we'll bring it right back because I think that fixed it last time as well. Anyways, sorry folks. It's been a long time since I used OBS. Oh look, there's my giant face again. And hopefully this fixes the issue. But if it doesn't, then we'll just power through, I guess. We'll just have no choice but to power through. And there we go. Back to where we wanted it to be. Anyways, so where was I? Yeah, we didn't know. No, you didn't listen. You didn't listen. You committed one of the largest logical fallacies known to man, which is an appeal to authority. And instead of doing real science or looking up things yourself from an eclectic standpoint, meaning you are considering multiple sides of the argument. You are collecting information from a wide variety of sources. You chose to turn on CNN or MSNBC or whatever other mainstream news publication existed or exists, and that's what you did because you willfully remained ignorant of the larger picture. And that is one of the first things that that led to all of the other chaos that we're probably going to get into throughout this evening. To continue with the article, I have been reflecting on and this is her talking, I have been reflecting on this lack of knowledge thanks to a class I'm co-teaching at Brown University on COVID. We've spent several lectures reliving the first year of the pandemic, discussing the many important choices we had to make under conditions of tremendous uncertainty. Some of these choices turned out better than others. To take an example close to my own work, there is an emerging, if not universal, consensus that schools in the U.S. were closed for too long. The health risks of in-school spread were relatively low, whereas the costs to students' well-being and educational progress were high. Something, again, that that people were pretty, solid. There was some solid information, to show that not only were we lied to about when this stuff even showed up here in the United States, but that by the time it came down to these stupid officials actually making choices that we all had to fall into lockstep with, or else we would be and were cast aside like some dirty plague rat others. Then, by the time that all started happening, there was still plenty of information available to prove that the measures that were being taken were not only unnecessary, but extremely harmful. So the latest figures on learning loss are alarming, but in spring and summer 2020, we only had glimmers of information. Reasonable people, i.e. people who cared about children and teachers, advocated on both sides of the reopening debate. The latest, I want to go back here to the couple of sentences ago. The latest figures on learning loss are alarming. Those latest figures on learning loss, I mean, again, remember this article was was published on October 31st of this year. So we're only, talking about the figures that were the latest figures as of that publication date. Well, we had trajectories proposed to us right at the beginning that if you do this for an extended period of time, if you take children out of their learning environments, if you place them, if you place them in a foreign type of learning environment, and you all know me, I'm an advocate for homeschooling. I'm a proponent. Like, I really want to see a dramatic shift in the way that we do our education as a people. But when you have such a dramatic change in the learning environment, then you're going to see that. We knew that then, you were warned about it then, and you chose to ignore it then. Now we're seeing hundredfold percentage rates of children that are behind in developmental stages. We're talking kids that don't know how to speak because of the masks that were over the adults' faces and even over the other kids' faces. We're seeing dramatic increases in speech therapy. You mean just it takes 5 minutes to look this stuff up, and you'll see for yourself that it doesn't take long to really see the dramatic and the dramatic consequences for what was put forward and done to these children. And just another point where people that were collecting information from an eclectic, a wide range of sources. They were not only ignored, but they were shamed, and the information that was presented was looked at as crazy, kooky conspiracies, and by a large swaths of the population chose to participate in that kind of outlook on people that had that didn't fall into lockstep, that didn't follow the narrative. They were looked at like they were crazy, that they wanted to kill kids, that they wanted to kill they wanted to kill teachers and children and elderly people to boot, you know. And here we are, like a few years later, when the data really hasn't changed since it was being released back in the early days of, in the early days of this scamdemic. When they were taking kids out of school, they were warned. And they put their heads in the sand about that too. We only had glimmers of information. No, you didn't. You've had decades and almost an entire century of of information regarding the education curve of children, and you had solid reasons to understand that if you remove children from their daily learning environments and put them into a foreign environment, the repercussions for those actions. You had the ability to look that up. You had that information. Again, you chose to ignore it. The people who cared about children and teachers, reasonable people who cared about children and teachers, advocated on both sides of the reopening debate. Sure. Let's see, another example, and here's where I'm probably about to get kicked off of YouTube. So before I start really talking about this part, please come on over, come on over to freeyourmindne.com/live or odyssey.com. The Hitchhiker's Guide to A Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth on odyssey.com. And I'll give you a second to go over there if need be, or come on over to onegreatworknetwork.com and check out the show there as well, because I'm pretty sure that even on like YouTube and Facebook nowadays, you still can't say certain words. But I'm going to continue and just hope for the best. As far as those platforms go, I'll ride the bus until the wheels fall off of it. So I'm not going to really censor myself, but I don't want my audience to miss this kind of breakdown on this. So please feel free. And I think by now I've given anyone who really cares enough to make the switch. So let's continue. Another example, when the vaccines came out, we lacked definitive data on the relative efficacies of the Johnson & Johnson shot versus the mRNA options from Pfizer and Moderna. So we really need to take this sentence and really unpack it here, because when we lack definitive data on the relative efficacies of the J&J versus the mRNA options from Pfizer and Moderna. Johnson & Johnson was the attenuated virus vaccine, which is a more traditional style vaccine that we've been exposed to, and really just run amok. These types of vaccines have run amok on our immune systems, and have more than likely been more harm than good for us as a species. Anyways, this is the relative efficacies versus the J&J versus the Pfizer and Moderna mRNA. It has nothing to do with the overall efficacy of either one of them. It's just pitting them against each other and seeing which one is supposedly more effective. And it doesn't seem to be pointing out anything about the safety. I don't see that word in here anywhere. Doesn't really have anything to do with the safety. It's just efficacy. And they're not effective. And we'll see that in a few minutes when we go over a few things here, but they're not effective. And we were lied to about those as well. The mRNA vaccines have won out, but at the time, many people in public health were either neutral or expressed a J&J preference. Yeah, that's because it's an attenuated virus vaccine, and that's I guess what you would call the medical technology that we have been used to for decades and decades. And this misstep wasn't nefarious. It was the result of uncertainty. Again, if you had only listened and collected information from an eclectic, base, many sources, wide range of sources, you would have and been open to the possibilities, you would have noticed that there were a lot of doctors and a lot of information coming out about mRNA technology. When you hear about Moderna, a company that has never had any product ever approved by the FDA. And by the way, every single product in the history of the FDA that has ever been pulled by the FDA was once approved by the FDA. So they don't really have a great track record either. Anywho, back to this article. We were told by people like Dr. Robert Malone, who's one of the people that is credited with the invention of mRNA technology, that this stuff wouldn't be a proper that mRNA wouldn't be a proper this wouldn't be a proper application for it. He reminded people over and over again. Then there was people like Peter McCullough, one of the more celebrated doctors on the face of the planet, a cardiologist that has published more in medical journals and has done more in the field of cardiology than any other single person on the face of the planet. And he was coming out early on and warning people about the chances about myocarditis and pericarditis, and especially in young children, young men. And he was warning people about that. They've tried to strip his medical license from him. They've tried to just lambast him and just pillory him in the public sphere, along with Dr. Robert Malone. And on top of all of that, this article here mentions absolutely nothing about the testing. And if we wanted to go back to early 2020 and the testing that they were given, the PCR test, Kary Mullis, who's the inventor, a chemist that invented the PCR test. Not only did he invent the PCR test, but he also got a Nobel Prize in chemistry for the invention of the PCR test. And there's plenty, and we'll go over that in a minute too, because I have artifacts after we go through this article that I would like to share with the audience and create a time capsule for. So we're going to have some artifacts that will provide, and we'll create a little bit of a time capsule out of this episode of A Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth. And so anyways, but at the time, many people in public health were either neutral or expressed a J&J preference. Okay, we went over that. This misstep wasn't nefarious. It was the result of uncertainty. A lot of uncertainty when, you just ignored information time and time and time again. And that information that you ignored, thus far, most of it, we've been proven right. Like a lot of the ththings that we were warning about and saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't be stomping on the gas and bringing this thing to, bringing this situation to 150 miles an hour. Maybe we should slow down a little bit and try to figure this out. If there even really is a public health crisis right now, maybe we should just slow it down and not jump, to conclusions so hard that we break our ankles when we land. We were laughed at. We were pilloried in the public sphere. We were othered, which is steps toward genocide once you really start looking into it. But to continue, obviously some people intended to mislead and made wildly irresponsible claims. Remember when the public health community had to spend a lot of time and resources urging Americans not to inject themselves with bleach? That was bad. Misinformation was and remains a huge problem, but most errors were made by people who were working in earnest for the good of society. Right, like Rachel Maddow, who on live television claimed that who's not a doctor, who's given a script, if you really think about it, these talking heads on the news, they're not doing any work. They're given a script. They are CIA Operation Mockingbird plants. They are the fourth, maybe even fifth wing of government. and they're here to tell you what the government wants you to do. So that's why it's like odd to me that obviously some people intended to mislead and made wildly irresponsible claims, like when they were claiming that wearing more than one mask would be effective, when we already knew that there was never going to be an amount of masks that you could wear that would be effective. Or when they told you to when they told you that it could spread outside, that they didn't know, when they told you that it might be able to spread on the surface of your groceries. Does it sound like AIDS a little bit to you? So anyways, to move on, most errors were made by people who are working in earnest for the good of society. So when these errors that you made about all of the ways that this thing could supposedly spread, when you made the errors when you were shutting down mom and pop shops, ruining people's livelihoods, putting people out on the streets, giving people a reason to be depressed and like go and drink and alcohol to the point of like, who God knows how far they took that. But then when you're giving people, all this extra time, like idle hands, all this really terrible stuff, it's pretty disturbing, but these errors were made in earnest for the good of society. Yeah. Tell that to the people that lost their businesses and subsequently lost their homes, the people that committed suicide because of all of this stuff, the kids that are going to be developmentally stunted for a very large portion of their lives. Tell that to them, that all these errors were made in the earnest for the good of society over a virus that, if you had no pre-existing conditions or comorbidities, where you were 99.7% likely to survive. And on average, the people that died from this thing had 4 comorbidities. And we found out later that the large amount of people that were dying weren't dying because of it, they were just dying with it. To continue with the article, given the amount of uncertainty, almost every position was taken on every topic. And on every topic, someone was eventually proven right, or proved. Someone was eventually proved right, and someone else was proved wrong. Am I just crazy? Maybe I don't know grammar. Maybe I don't know how to make a sentence, but shouldn't it be proven? Maybe I'm wrong. I'm okay if I'm wrong. In some instances, the right people were right for the wrong reasons. In other instances, they had a prescient understanding of the available information. That just makes me want to burst out laughing. The right people were right for the wrong reasons. In other instances, they had a prescient understanding of the available information. Oh my God. The people who got it right, for whatever reason, may want to gloat. Those who got it wrong, for whatever reason, may feel defensive and retrench into a position that doesn't accord with the facts. So we're talking about solipsism. That sounds to me like solipsism. Like you just want to like, no, I'm right. Like, no, you're no. But you know what? Like those of us that, here's a part that we need to take a minute and really, discuss, is that the people who got it right, for whatever reason, may want to gloat. That's not true. That's not true. There probably are some, but not all of everybody who got it right wants to gloat. Most of us that have been on the right side of this thing, we just want accountability. That's why tonight I titled this episode, Pandemic Accountability. Let's declare pandemic accountability, because we want the truth, and we want the lies to stop. All we ever wanted, all we still want is the truth. So we can work off of the truth. And for the people that may feel defensive and want to retrench into a position that doesn't accord with the facts, grow up, get over it, and grow up. All of this gloating and defensiveness continues to gobble up a lot of social energy and to drive the culture wars, especially on the internet. These discussions are heated, unpleasant, and ultimately unproductive. In the face of so much uncertainty, getting something right had a hefty element of luck. No, it didn't have anything to do with luck. It had to do with a conscious ability to like really look at both sides of an argument and consider, and also there is a lot of people out there that weren't buying what they were selling right from the start, because it all and I learned this I learned this after the fact, but in hindsight, yeah, all of the signs of a psyop are there. So there was a lot of people that were like, no, seen this before. And I'll admit, I was not one of those people. But I learned pretty quick that something was rotten in Denmark, as they like to say, and that it just wasn't right. So you better start questioning these authority figures, or else you're going to lose yourself real fast. So to continue. And similarly, getting something wrong wasn't a moral failing. Actually, yeah, it was a moral failing when you're literally stripping people of their livelihoods, when people are fighting people inside of stores because they're not wearing a mask. You're making claims over other people's bodies. That's a claim of ownership. That's slavery. You're advocating for slavery by making claims of ownership over other people's bodies. So yeah, getting this wrong was a complete and total moral failing. Treating pandemic choices as a scorecard on which some people racked up more points than others is preventing us from moving forward. I'm sorry, but during the entire heat of the pandemic, there was this and we'll look in a minute. I keep talking about these artifacts that I have. I have some videos ready to go. We'll find some videos and look at those as well, and we'll just remind everybody about some of the things that were being said about people like myself, my children, my wife, other people that I care about very, very much, some of my best friends in the whole wide world, my colleagues in the truth movement, my peers, and the people that really just knew their boundaries, set their line, and said, we will not comply. So treating pandemic choices as a scorecard on which some people racked up more points than others is preventing us from moving forward. The thing that's preventing us from really moving forward is the lack of accountability on the people that put us in this position in the first place. It's the lies. It's the lies and the lack of truth. That's what's keeping us from moving forward. Not some point system or a scorecard, because it truly doesn't matter. It truly doesn't matter. This competition that you're trying to set up. What matters is that what remains is there has been no accountability for any of these people that set these policies into place that, again, took children and abused them and stripped people of their livelihoods and made endless claims of ownership over other people's bodies, the likes of which we probably haven't seen in human history. And I know I'm being maybe a little hyperbolic about that, but it certainly feels that way. To continue, we have to put these fights aside and declare a pandemic amnesty. You cannot get amnesty. There has been no act of contrition here. There has been no act of contrition at all. There has not been anything of the sort. We can leave out the willful purveyors of actual misinformation while forgiving the hard calls that people had no choice but to make with imperfect knowledge. Excuse me, but there's always choices. There's always choices, And right at the beginning, there was the choice of perhaps, and again, this is under the umbrella of what if this is actually something that did occur, which I don't know. I truly don't know, but it certainly seems like it was all fear-based anyways, so who's to say? Hard calls that people had no choice but to make with imperfect knowledge. Again, this claim of imperfect knowledge and, available information and results of uncertainty. It's just euphemisms for being fucking ignorant. And you have a choice. You have a choice. When you see videos online about this, I'm sure a lot of people saw this video online where this woman was forced to shut down her business, and she goes out the front door of her business, and across the parking lot is a corporation or that's allowed to stay open. And videos like that poor woman out in California who went through the same thing. She walks out the front door of her business, and there's like a Hollywood business that's allowed to stay open because they service people, they service Hollywood people, actors and sound stages and whatnot. And here's this woman who's just a regular old mom and pop shop private business owner who's not allowed to stay open, but they are. It's a serious, serious offense to those people. And you'll never, ever, ever be able to fix what you did. Los Angeles County closed its beaches in summer 2020. Ex post facto, this makes no more sense than my family's masking hiking trips. And you were told about that when it was happening. And again, I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. You chose to ignore the counterpoint, and you chose fear. You chose fear, and you buried your head in the sand. We all know, we've all heard it a million times before. Where's my Mark Passio fans out there? When your head's in the sand, it puts you in quite a position, doesn't it? But we need to learn from our mistakes and then let them go. No, there is no letting it go. There is no letting it go. Sure, we should learn from our mistakes, but you can't ever let them go, because if you forgive, that's great. If you can find it in your heart to forgive the people in your surroundings that wronged you throughout these past couple of years, that's great. And I actually encourage that. We should be able to try to find a way forward. This is not about sticking it to the people that might have had it wrong, that are in your social circles. This is about when this part about let them go, we can't forget what they did. If we forget if we forget the things that were done to us without our consent, that we might have been made to do or forced to do based on your geographical location at the time, if we forget about those things, then honestly we open up the door for them to do it to us again, and then the forgiveness never meant a thing. The forgiveness never meant a thing if the person that you're forgiving does it again. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Forgiveness includes an act of contrition, which simply put means that the person will never do those things again, and they have made up for their wrongdoing in somehow, some way. They've provided you with the confidence in them that they will not repeat the mistake that they made, that made you have to forgive them, that they had to ask for forgiveness for. We need to forgive the attacks too. Yeah. No. No. There's plenty of situations where maybe members of your family or whatever were scared and they wanted to stay home or whatever, and they didn't necessarily attack you. Yeah, that's grounds for forgiveness, because you know what? Whatever. But I'm telling you right now, folks out there, if you're one of the unfortunate people that were attacked, and I'm one of them, if you were attacked by somebody in a store for not wearing a mask, if you might have oh man, I'm not sure how I would really handle a face-to-face interaction like this. But if you were one of the poor people that were accused of all X, Y, and Z terrible things because you chose to have bodily autonomy and not get a vaccination, these are not things that we should be forgiving of. There's definitely a separation there where we really do need to categorize things and be like, well, you know what? Like, yeah, we can forgive some things, but other things should not be forgiven. So forgiving the attacks is not an option. And she goes on to say it's because she thought schools should reopen, and argued that kids as groups were not high risk and that she was called a teacher killer and a genocidaire. Yeah, there were people out there that were called a lot worse. And we're going to see in a minute, because I have some videos that I'd like to share and remind everybody about, that it was not that simple of being called a nasty name like a teacher killer. And I don't think anyone had the right to call her a teacher killer, because she was right. Schools should have reopened and we should have been able to, and I don't approve of a public school education, but at the same time, again, ripping a child from their learning environment so violently is not good for the kid. Anywho, I was called a teacher killer and a genocidaire. It wasn't pleasant, but feelings were high, and I certainly don't need to dissect and rehash that time for the rest of my days. Sure, moving on is crucial now because the pandemic created many problems that we still need to solve. Well, Student test scores have shown historic declines, more so in math than in reading, and more so for students who were disadvantaged at the start. We need to collect data, experiment, and invest. Is high dosage tutoring more or less cost effective than extended school years? Oh, see, there's a little silver lining right there. There's a little bit of the playbook right there. Extended school years. Yeah, that's more state indoctrination for your children. Why have some states recovered faster than others? Because some states didn't lock down. Because some states didn't put up with this. They didn't take the kids out of public schools for very long, if not at all. And they moved on a lot sooner than 2.5 years after it all started. So we should focus on questions like these, because answering them is how we will help our children recover. Oh, let's pull at the heartstrings a little more. Now it's about the children recovering when we did all this to them because we were scared that the old people would die. And they were dying of COVID after the average age of death for old people in COVID was after the average age of death for like the maximum life expectancy. I forget how to say that to make it make sense, but I hope that makes sense for people. Excuse me. Many people have neglected their health care over the past several years. Notably, routine vaccination rates for children for measles, pertussis, etc. are way down. Maybe it's because people caught wind of the fucking scam that you people put in and the bad shit that they put in vaccines, because you made vaccines such a hot topic. People started looking into the things that go into them in the first place, and they're like, wow, I never realized how much aluminum was in your vaccines. Wow, I never realized the amount of side effects that I'm exposing my children to by injecting them with things that are pretty much useless. Rather than debating the role that messaging about COVID vaccines had in this decline, we need to put all our energy into bringing these rates back up. Those are rookie numbers. You got to pump those numbers up, bitch. Pediatricians and public health officials will need to work together on community outreach, and politicians will need to consider school mandates. So we're talking about forgiving each other for what we did during the pandemic, and she still advocates for mandates. Come on, that was one of the biggest problems in the whole goddamn thing. Oh my God. These people don't. These people don't learn. They don't learn. The standard saying is that those who forget history are doomed to repeat it, but dwelling on the mistakes of history can lead to a repetitive doom loop as well. Oh my God. Let's acknowledge that we made complicated choices in the face of deep uncertainty and then try to work together to build back and move forward. Build back. Has anyone out there heard build back at all the past couple of years? You get a little insight as to who she's working for. Anyways, move forward. I cannot believe that we need to consider school mandates. Mandates for what? Vaccines. The COVID vaccine, which they in the CDC, like 15 people unanimously voted to recommend. The vote was to recommend for the vaccine to be put on the schedule. So that's pretty rich. Anyways, let's see that. Now, what are we gonna do? What do we got? All right, so see if this works. I'm gonna pull this up. Wonder if did that work on full screen? Do we really need it on full screen? Wonder if you guys can see it. Anyways, you probably can. Let's make sure that. So Adele bans unvaccinated. Let's go over this one little slide at a time. I'll just scrub through it. That way we don't need to listen to the music there. So let me make sure my levels here are correct. Anyways, I got a little frog in my throat. Excuse me. Gas the unvaccinated. Right. And with the swastika. And next we will go. All right. So it's from the Daily Mail. And this was back on December 9th, 2021. And it's an article. It's time to punish Britain's 5 million vaccine refuseniks. They put us all at risk of more restrictions, says Andrew Neil. So why shouldn't we curb some of their freedoms? We have since learned that that was a lie. All right, so Adele bans unvaccinated fans from attending upcoming concerts. And somebody put a quote that said, "Hallelujah, there is a God. Unvaxxed, never forget." So comments on Eric Clapton's different views, quote, different views call anti-vaxxers fruitcakes. That was on the 7th of, it's the 7th of August, 2021. And that looks like it's the guitarist from Queen, which it is. All right. Anne McElvoy said, the unvaccinated have become a lethal liability we can ill afford. And that was, I can't see the date, but that looks like it might have been September something. December. I can't really make that out, but that looks like Reba McEntire. Anyways, don't ask me how I know who that is. Next. James Corden says those who refuse experimental jab deserves a knuckle sandwich and should be excluded from society. That's on June 18th, 2021. And we have a little bit more from James Corden in a minute. I'm just gonna have to scroll down. Next. From Mayor Lori Lightfoot, that's the mayor of Chicago, at Chicago's mayor on Twitter. To put it simply, if you have been living vaccine-free, your time is up. If you wish to live life as with the ease to do the things you love, you must be vaxxed. This health order may pose an inconvenience to the unvaccinated, and in fact, it is inconvenient by design. Imagine. That's a complete and total shame. These people should be ashamed of themselves, and they should be, well, they'll have the consequences coming to them. I don't know when, but one day. George Takei, oh my. The willfully unvaccinated who wind up in hospitals from COVID should not receive priority medical care over other very sick or injured people who are as much in urgent need of medical care. Right, so you could break your leg? Is that what you're saying? Because that's what it sounds like. Bruce Springsteen revives Broadway show for
fully vaccinated audiences only.
That's Deep Voice Guy. Footballers who refuse to be jabbed should be refused treatment for injuries. After all, why should they trust doctors about treatment for broken legs and torn ligaments if they don't trust them about a life-saving vaccine? From Pierce Morgan, December 19th, 21. All right, let's move forward. From the Toronto Star. If an unvaccinated person catches it from someone who is vaccinated, boo-hoo, too bad. I have no empathy left for the willfully unvaccinated. Let them die. I honestly don't care if they die from COVID, not even a little bit. Unvaccinated patients do not deserve ICU beds. At this point, who cares? Stick the unvaccinated in a tent outside and tend to them when the staff has time. That's the Toronto Star, published August. Let's see. That looks to me like it's August 16th or August 26th, 2021.
This stuff is completely from Satan, guys.
Moving on. Rocker D. Snyder to unvaccinated fans.
Fuck you. Don't have a right to infect me.
Hope you guys are getting a kick out of Deep Voice Guy. Next. That's from Breitbart. Fuck D. Snyder. Don Lemon. He said, start shaming those who are unvaccinated on live television for hundreds of thousands of people. Next. Diane Francis, whoever that is, I would like to know, but I don't really care because she said, make the unvaccinated pay for their own health care. That's from thefinancialpost.com. Diane Francis. Francis. Next. Howard Stern to imbecile anti-vaxxers.
Go fuck yourself.
When are we gonna stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say it's mandatory to get vaccinated?
Fuck them. Fuck their freedom.
SiriusXM host says on September 9th, 2021. Next. Wow. I can't really read what that says. Rockstar slammed those who have chosen not to get vaxxed as killers and spoke of how he was banned at a I can't read that, but that's Rod Stewart probably saying some pretty fucking shiesty shit about unvaccinated people. What is this? Oop, I pressed play by mistake. My bad, guys. Mocking anti-vaxxers' death is ghoulish, but probably says something about how it needs to happen. How we should think about anti-vaccine activists who die from COVID. And it's a face of this smiling, cackling, demon-looking
Bitch.
who just likes to wish death upon people, and that we need to mock people, probably. Again, Piers Morgan. People who refuse to get jabbed but whine about lockdowns really are a special breed of stupid, selfish pricks. To me, what I just read is people who don't like being slaves and whine about being slaves and point out about how we're slaves really are a special breed, really should like being slaves. And how dare you want to be free? From Dean Blundell. Looks like we got a couple of Jesus/COVID/QAnon related deaths/homecomings to celebrate, kids. And it's a picture of a woman, and it looks like a CPAP machine, but it's really like it's one of those high pressure, low oxygen, whatchamacallits. Man, it's really sick. So, CTV, which is Canada's most trusted news anytime, anywhere, they made a web poll. And it said, should those who remain unvaccinated face penalties? Jail time, such as jail time, be denied health care. And then the third option is no penalty. I really wish I could see the results of that. Perhaps we'll go and try to find that in a minute. Next, Sean T at RCP. So Sean T is, I think his last name is Trende, because you can see at Sean Trende at SeanTrende. Repulsive, he says. If you aren't vaccinated and other people need an ICU bed, we should unplug you, throw you in the family station wagon, and wish you luck. I'd even throw in the ivermectin for free. But hey, let's forgive. Amnesty! Yay! The unvaccinated cherish their freedom to harm others. How can we ever forgive them? Wow. If it weren't for people like myself and some of my most respected friends and colleagues, and even some of the people that did get the vaccine, but they felt pressured, that are speaking out now, we might not even have a modicum of freedom left. We barely have any as it is. Kisses Gene Simmons to anti-vaccinated. Unvaccinated.
You are an enemy.
What a joke. Next. Here we have Neil Young. And concerts are super spreaders, and promoters are putting profits above health, says Neil Young, who was basically just insignificant before he threatened to pull his music off of Spotify because Joe Rogan. Anna Navarro Cardenas or whatever at Gay Guy Candles Co. Products. At Anna Navarro. Unless you have a legitimate medical reason, if you're not vaccinated, I don't want to see you, talk to you, work with you, socialize with you, or know you. It's enough. Your personal freedom is holding the rest of us hostage. It's selfish and stupid. And the candle is, if you're not vaccinated, get the fuck out of my house. That Gay Guy Candle Co. Wow. Fair and tolerant. So fair and tolerant. It's your personal freedom is holding the rest of us hostage, sort of like your lockdowns, sort of like how we've all been held hostage by government the past couple of years. There's still a lot of places on the face of the planet, like for rest of us hostage. Look at the people that were living through the concentration camps in Australia, and you want to talk about that are advocating for personal freedom is holding other people hostage. Give me a break. Excuse me. Didn't mean to scroll down. Nearly half of Democrats say fines, prison time appropriate for questioning vaccines. So says a poll on January 17th, 2022. This is from ABC News, the National Desk by Zachary Rogers. Monday, January 17th, 2022. Prison time for questioning vaccines. Not even whether or not you're getting them, but just for questioning. Nearly half. So from Jeremy Hunt at Jeremy_Hunt, I understand the practical reasons why we have abandoned mandatory vaccinations, but think the U-turn is completely wrong. Here's why. And he probably went on to write some Twitter thread, but in case that's, I had to read that twice, but he thinks that making the U-turn on the abandonment was wrong. So he advocates for mandatory vaccination, which is wrong. Let's see here. Foo Fighters. Wow. Agent Dave Grohl himself. Foo Fighters to allow vaccinated fans only at Madison Square Garden concert. This was published on June 9th, 2021 at 10:24 a.m. So Dave Grohl, supposed punk rocker or whatever from back in the day, you know, daddy was in the military and he's probably the guy that ended up being the one that got Kurt Cobain killed. But hey, I'm not looking into it. It's just, you know, his drummer looked a lot like Kurt Cobain, and it seems like a satanic ritual sacrifice to me. But hey, what do I know? Thanks, Dave Grohl. Such a nice guy. Next. Oh, here we go. CNN's Leana Wen, and we're going to look into her a little bit because I want to get this in the time capsule right from her mouth. The unvaccinated should not be allowed to leave their homes. This was published on September 10th, 2021. And she goes on to quote, "You have the option to not get vaccinated if you want, but then you can't go out in public." I'm telling you, man, these types of people, this type of rhetoric has an influence. Kisses Gene Simmons on the unvaccinated. I'm not worried if an idiot gets COVID and dies. And there are so many cases of people who were deniers and who are begging in the hospital to get the vaccine, but it's too late. Right. He needs a couple of fucking vaccines. Fucking idiot. Doug Little, and I saw this one. This one's probably one of the most disgusting. So Doug Little, at J. Douglas Little. Okay. He says that his position is we must make the lives of the unvaccinated a total misery and just keep escalating the exclusions until we crush the resistance and break their spirit in order to force compliance, and so they learn not to resist government mandates. From Vancouver, British Columbia, on August 10th, 2021. I know this is boring, but it needs to be done. From Debbie Veritek, at Debbie Veritek, DebbieVaritek. Dear dipshit, your Lord and Savior sent doctors, scientists, and vaccines. You deserve the miserable death you're causing others. Again, folks, vast majority of deaths from COVID were not even from COVID. There were deaths with COVID. Most of the people that were dying had up to 4 more comorbidities. Perfectly healthy people had a 98.7 chance of survival. So this is from, looks like NPR to me. I can't really tell. Anyways, are hospital workers running out of sympathy for unvaccinated COVID patients? This is from January 7th, 2022. and it's from NPR, which is a lie. It's not National Public Radio. It's not from the public at all. They get money from like the Carnegie Endowment and everything like that, which they're bought and paid for, so don't let them fool you either. NPR, A. Martinez, so A is the first initial, speaks with Dr. Daniela Lamas, a pulmonary and critical care physician at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, about the risk of compassion fatigue for the unvaccinated. Next. This is what I'm talking about. Look at this. This is just absolutely, utterly disgusting. Screw your rights. Force vax now.
Kill unvaxxed and take their kids.
That is just some of the most disgusting behavior of any of this. Take their kids. Kill unvaxxed. Force the vaccines. These people, and this is who we're supposed to grant amnesty? You want to take my kids from me? My kids don't have the vaccine either. You're going to kill them too? Or are you just going to force it upon them and kill me? What are you going to do? Next. That seriously is one of the most disturbing pictures I've seen about this in a while. And trust me, I've been looking at the black pill on this for a long time. And not that I really, support police officers at all, but even here we see that somebody called to purge all the unvaccinated cops, that they will be better off. Right. Because this is, again, somebody of the same mindset, that their mindset has been built around the dependency that, they're just slaves. They don't know how to live life without police officers around. And then this guy, David Axelrod, is talking about Lori Lightfoot. Mayor orders all Chicago workers to be fully vaccinated by October 15th. And goes on to talk about police officers. We don't need the cops, but it's still at the same time, it's just a show of how far they were willing to go. These people love the police. We're going to move on here. Well, what's this? We have Professor Emily Oster on the 22nd of December of 2021. And, I mean, is this the same Emily Oster that wrote the pandemic amnesty article for The Atlantic on October 31st of 2022? I believe it is. She had to say, shaming people who haven't gotten vaccinated is not likely to work at this point or ever. She goes on to ask, what will? Then she says, individual family pressure. Maybe vaccine requirements for things you want to do. Domestic air, train, travel, work, sports events. Yes, we can have these without shame. No, you can't have those without shame. You can't. And that's this little video here. Excuse me. So we have here. I thought I had it here. Some of this stuff is just gross. Here's another one. A COVID microchip passport implanted in your skin. Yep. They have this thing that they're already doing in Sweden. Let's talk about the amount of aluminum in vaccines. There's so much stuff out there, guys. But, we can go over here because I have this clip from Steven Crowder, who I'm not really the biggest fan of, but they do some interesting work over there. So
tell you. That's what's very important. In other words, if ever you feel as though you're getting something incomplete, wait, hold on a second. What is the immunity? with that story. What is the immunity if you already have the virus?
Yeah.
They'll never bring it up.
No,
They'll
doesn't
never
matter.
discuss
Next story.
It's a non-issue. Same thing with this doctor on CNN who I was watching this morning.
Doctor.
Leanna Wen is her name. You've probably seen this crazy communist. And I don't have evidence for that, but if I had to bet, she's probably banging Eric Swalwell.
A little hyperbole, but it's okay.
She said as an authoritative source on CNN, she's CNN's medical analyst and Washington Post contributing columnist. There you go. That'll get a nice seat on a board at a think tank. Here's her this morning, I believe, talking
We need
about
to start looking at the choice to remain unvaccinated the same as we look at driving while intoxicated. That you have the option to not get vaccinated if you want, but then you can't go out in public. Because when you go out in public, you have the potential of infecting other people with a potentially deadly disease. Just
Potential.
You can choose to drink in private if you want, but if you get behind the wheel of a car and can endanger other people, there is an obligation by society to prevent you from doing that. So I think what President Biden did today is exactly right to say that the vaccinated should not have to pay the price for the so-called choices of the unvaccinated anymore.
So-called
Although,
choices.
to your point, Chris, I definitely wished that he had also announced some type of proof of vaccination.
Okay, good. Remember, by the way, when they said even Dr. Fauci, maybe someone can bring this up from the control room, because just like masks, he said you're not going to be able to mandate people to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
He said, if the people.
Okay, so that's one example there. We're gonna fast forward, and we're going to look at another example, and it's in the same video of this Leanna Wen talking about what she thinks about this. So
To travel.
But there's an even bigger reason, too, which is I think we really need to make it clear that there are privileges associated with being an American, that if you wish to have these privileges, you need to get vaccinated. Travel and having the right to travel interstate, it's not a constitutional right, as far as I know, to board a plane. And so saying that if you want to stay unvaccinated, that's your choice. But if you want to travel, you better go get that vaccine.
Oh, well, it's funny that she should mention that, because there actually is.
So we go into that, and it's very unfortunate, because this is also the woman that claimed that she also was on there talking about how inconvenient that the lives of the unvaccinated should be made, and that's just utterly disgusting. So I've never really thrown my 2 cents in by myself about this stuff. I've always been talking to other people about it, and that's great and all, but sometimes it's important to kind of take a step back and cover things solo about this. And it's been on my mind for a while, and I just wanted to provide some context of this amnesty thing that but this one person put up and was suggesting. So there's that. And I think that we look down the list, and okay, so here's.
How do they misuse PCR to estimate all these supposed free viral RNAs that may or may not be there?
I think misuse PCR is not quite. I don't think you can misuse PCR. No, the results, the interpretation of it. See, if you can say, if they could find this virus in you at all. And with PCR, if you do it well, you can find almost anything in anybody. It starts making you believe in the sort of Buddhist notion that everything is contained in everything else, right? I mean, because if you can amplify one single molecule up to something that you can really measure, which PCR can do, then there's just very few molecules that you don't have at least one single one of them in your body, okay? So that could be thought of as a misuse of it, just to claim that it's meaningful. It is. No, there's very little of what they call HIV, and what's been brought out here by Phil Pott and Isai already. The measurement for it is not exact at all. It's not as good as our measurement for things like apples. An apple is an apple. You know, you can get something that's kind of like, if you got enough things that look kind of like an apple and you stick them all together, you might think it's an apple. But and HIV is like that. Those tests are all based on things that are invisible, and the results are inferred in a sense. PCR is separate from that. It's just a process that's used to make a whole lot of something out of something. That's what
Also,
it is. But it's not. It doesn't tell you that you're sick, and it doesn't tell you that the thing you ended up with really was going to hurt you or anything like that.
So there, like I said earlier in the broadcast this evening, it was, put out there pretty early on, this information about the PCR test. I may have misspoke earlier, but basically what I was saying earlier was, and that was Kary Mullis who invented the PCR test. There's a few other things. Oh, here's one. Here's a funny thing about masks.
Okay, you're checked in?
Yeah, thank you.
Here's your AIDS ribbon.
No thanks.
You don't want to wear an AIDS ribbon?
No.
But you have to wear an AIDS ribbon.
I have to?
Yes.
Yeah, see, that's why I don't want to.
But everyone wears the ribbon. You must wear the ribbon.
What you are? You're a ribbon bully.
Hey, you, come back here. Come back here and put this on.
Seinfeld is a show about psychopaths anyways.
You don't wear the ribbon? Aren't you against AIDS?
Yeah, I'm against AIDS. I mean, I'm walking on it. Just don't wear the ribbon.
Who do you think you are?
Put the ribbon on.
Hey, Cedric, Bob, this guy won't wear a ribbon.
Who? Who doesn't want to wear the ribbon? So, what's it going to be? Are you going to wear the ribbon? No, never. But I'm wearing the ribbon. He's wearing the ribbon. We are all wearing the ribbon. So why aren't you going to wear the ribbon?
This is America. I don't have to wear anything I don't want to wear.
What are we going to do with him? I guess we're just going to have to teach him to wear the ribbon.
So there we see a pretty good example, of how people were treated for not wearing masks. And again, here we go.
Can find out and how much we can find out.
All
right, today we're going to talk about how we can find out and how much we can find out and what it takes to get there.
This is important.
So first we have to decide how much do we want to find out. So let's say in this case, I want to find out at a level of 7. Okay, so I find that level on my graph and I come horizontally to my gradient line. Where it intersects with my gradient line, I'm going to come straight down.
Science.
Where it intersects with my fuck around line.
Yeah.
That there is going to tell me how much I have to fuck around to find out what I need to find out.
Yeah. Keep it in mind.
As you can see, the more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
Yep.
And also, if you stay down here and you never fuck around, you'll never find out.
Yep.
So I hope this lesson is helpful. Thank you.
It's just science. It's just science. Yeah, here we go.
No, to the no, 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 yeah, to the no, yeah, to the no, to the no, no, no. Listen.
All right, and this is another photo here that I wanted to look at, So, this is The Atlantic. The anti-vaccine right brought human sacrifice to America. Unvaccinated people need to bear the burden. Vaccine refusers don't get to dictate terms anymore. Some Americans no longer believe in the common good. They are now only thinking of themselves. That's how it was going, and here how it's going now, what we're talking about tonight. So there's that. And yeah, it's how you get a job interview. Anyways, and so yeah, I mean that kind of covers that. Wait a minute, there was something else I wanted to get into. Where is it? Here we go. The leaked documents outlining the Department of Homeland Security's to police disinformation. So let's look at that. From The Intercept, which is a extremely politically biased publication, but I found this article to be interesting nonetheless, and it is very relevant. And what do you know? It was published on October 31st, 2022. Same day as the pandemic amnesty. We find out that the Department of Homeland Security has been quietly broadening its efforts to curb speech and considers dangerous an investigation by The Intercept has found. Years of internal Department of Homeland Security memos, emails, and documents obtained via leaks and an ongoing lawsuit, as well as public documents, illustrate an expansive effort by the agency to influence tech platforms. Keep in mind while I'm reading this, folks, that this was also published on October 31st, 2022, the same day that they published the pandemic amnesty bullshit article. So when we see articles being published like this, what the problem is that they do this as a way of distraction. It's a distraction method. So they'll publish, both of these, say they publish both of these at the same time. Maybe not at the same exact time, but the same day, right? One of them is going to get the public's attention a lot more than the other one. Everyone's reached their boiling point about the pandemic, so of course the pandemic amnesty one is going to reach far and wide. A lot of people probably didn't even hear about this, but that's why I'm here. The work, much of which remains unknown to the American public, came into clearer view earlier this year when Department of Homeland Security announced a new Disinformation Governance Board. Dun dun dun. I gotta get that on the soundboard.
Dun dun dun.
Like something like that. Dun dun dun. Gotta do that kind of. I gotta get that on the soundboard. Anyways, the Disinformation Governance Board, which was a panel designed to police misinformation, false information spread unintentionally, disinformation, which is false information spread intentionally, and malinformation, which is factual information shared typically out of context with harmful intent. See, they obfuscate falsehood. They obfuscate what is and what is not. And they make it so complicated that the average person can't understand. And they question so much. They question their own confidence to the point where they don't think anything's true. That everything's some sort of dis, or mal this, misinformation, all this information, these new ways to describe information. But to move on with this article, malinformation is factual information shared typically out of context with harmful intent, and all this that allegedly threatens U.S. interests. While the board was widely ridiculed, immediately scaled back, and then shut down within a few months, other initiatives are underway at Department of Homeland Security that pivots to monitoring social media now that its original mandate, the war on terror, has been wound down. Behind closed doors and through pressure on private platforms, the U.S. government has used its power to try to shape online discourse, according to meeting minutes and other records appended to a lawsuit filed by Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt, a Republican who is also running for Senate. Why does that even matter? First of all, why does this sentence right here, why does that even matter? It shouldn't matter. Discussions have ranged from the scale and scope of government intervention in online discourse to the mechanics of streamlining takedown requests for false or intentionally misleading information. They are admitting now what we have all known for a while, what most of us have been warning about for quite some time, that these privately owned, publicly accessed social media sites are allowed to do what they do when it comes to censorship. They're allowed to do what they do because they're privately owned but accessed publicly, but they're in cahoots with the government They're taking government money and subsidiaries. They're doing all this stuff with the government, and this only strengthens the ties that specifically Facebook has with the government when referring to LifeLog, and how that was LifeLog was I believe it was a DARPA project that was abandoned the same day that Facebook became a thing, sometime in February of 2004, and that it has always been a government project, but now we're just admitting that they have a back door where they can directly communicate with with these social media companies and tell them exactly what it is that the government approves of or disapproves of. They're the arbiters of information, and they have no right to do so. And it's because of this type of behavior from the government on the new public square, such as social media sites as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of these places, the main places, the big names, it's because of this type of behavior that the other information through the pandemic was so chaotic, and the communication, not information, the communication throughout the pandemic was so chaotic, and it led to such division in this country. And now they want to ask for amnesty at the same exact time that it's coming out that they created this in the first place. And the creation of all of this division in the first place on the part of the government through these types of measures in social media is yet again another point that people like myself who actually read and listen to opposing points of view have been warning about, and we've been told and laughed at and told that we're crazy, kooky conspiracy theorists that don't deserve the time of day, and we don't know what we're talking about, and we should stop being so paranoid. And here it is, right here, that it's happening. The truth is always revealed at some point or another. It's just a matter of whether or not enough people are paying attention to the right thing at the right time. And then they go, look at the birdie, and then they take the picture. It's the same smoke and mirrors, distraction techniques where they're telling you the truth, they're revealing you what their playbook is, and you're too busy looking over there at something that is meaningless because it's shiny and it's got your attention, to pay attention to the real shit that's going down that actually matters. And this, if enough people were like, wait a minute, what? All of it. Really, but this is how they do what they did. And now there's people asking for amnesty for the way that they acted based off of what the government did, and this is how they did it. Microsoft executive Matt Masterson texted, platforms have got to, so let's just continue reading. Platforms have got to get comfortable with government. It's really interesting how hesitant they remain. That's Microsoft executive Matt Masterson, a former Department of Homeland Security official. He texted that to Jen Easterly, who is a Department of Homeland Security director, in February of this year. So this is another interesting part right here. Let's pay attention to that too. A former Department of Homeland Security official who now works for Microsoft. This is also a part of how they do things. They switch back and forth. It's the same thing as, in big pharma, you see, next thing you know, somebody that used to work for Pfizer is now at the CDC. So how do you think that scales are going to be tipped when you have officials that used to work for Pfizer, now they're working for the CDC? Things like that happen too. We see it in the tech sphere as well, where you see people from the Department of Homeland Security working for Microsoft now. You see people that used to work at the Pentagon or at the CIA or these three-letter organizations, or these government institutions or whatever, and now they work at places like Facebook. It's not that hard to put it together. They're mingling. They're cross-pollinating. In a March meeting, Laura Damelow, who is an FBI official, warned that the threat of subversion information on social media could undermine support for the U.S. government. Damelow, according to notes of the discussion attended by senior executives from Twitter and J.P. Morgan Chase, which is a bank, stressed that we need a media infrastructure that is held accountable. We do not coordinate with other entities when making content moderation decisions, and we independently evaluate content in line with the Twitter rules, a spokesperson from Twitter wrote in a statement to The Intercept. So, moving forward, I want the key takeaways. All right. Well, let's move forward, and we'll go back to the key takeaways. There's also a formalized process for government officials to directly flag content on Facebook or Instagram and request that it be throttled or suppressed through a special Facebook portal that requires a government or law enforcement email to use. What do we get when we click on special Facebook portal? Oh, look at that. This looks like it. No, well, we could look into that some other time, maybe, but that's interesting. That was the special Facebook portal, but we didn't get a good look at that. At the time of writing, the, quote, content request system at facebook.com/x takedowns/login is still live. So that means as of October 31st, 2022, that portal was still live. Department of Homeland Security and Meta, the parent company of Facebook, did not respond to a request for comment, and the FBI declined to comment. Yep. Of course. DHS's mission to fight disinformation stemming from concerns around Russia. The Russian influence in the 2016 presidential election began taking shape during the 2020 election wait a minute. Okay, I just had to reread that because I could have sworn that these same kind of official fucking three-letter agencies kind of... Anyways, you can never tell. They're always lying about everything. So it began taking shape during the began taking shape during the 2020 election and over efforts to shape discussions around vaccine policy during the coronavirus pandemic. Documents collected by The Intercept from a variety of sources, including current officials and publicly available reports, reveal that the evolution of more active measures by DHS, according to a draft. How long is this article? Ugh. Look at that. So you get the gist, you get the gist of this. So the most disturbing part, all right, let's go look at this Facebook portal before we call it a night, all right? And if you want to call into the show, go to the Discord and go down to the voice channel, call into the show, and I'll see you in there. I'll take your phone call. You come on in. It's the first time we're going to try to do this. And hopefully it goes well. But anyways, back to this. So this is let's go here. Right, the Facebook content request system, the government reporting system. That to me looks like a bunch of constellations around the word Facebook. So introduction to CRS, which stands for Content Reporting System. Facebook Content Request System, CRS. Oh, Content Request System. It said content. Okay, Content Request System. Okay. All right. Process the reports. Facebook government requests. Facebook processes. Access to Facebook security, CRS security. Open up your browser, type in here. Access to content request system, whatever that, content requests. Okay, step 1, open up your browser and type in www.facebook.com/x takedowns, one word, /login. Number 2, click request access. Third step, input the email address that we onboarded with. 3A, your name, which is optional, will be used for the email. Access to CRS security. Open up your browser and type blah, 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 blah. So, yeah. It looks like they're sending like a link, and yeah, I mean, let's see. Open an email titled "Access to Facebook Content Request System" and follow the link. Secure link provided in the email body. Please note that this link is valid for only 1 hour. Your time starts now. Your time starts now. So that's interesting. And then we have, what else do we have tonight? Okay, so the CDC study confirms that COVID vaccination increases risk of suffering autoimmune disease affecting heart by a whopping 13,200%. 13,200% increase risk of suffering autoimmune disease affecting heart. So, here we have.
And how do you create a market for a market? The hype is necessary, Polly, for the vaccine, right? You have to first create a market. And how do you create a market for a vaccine? You create it by getting people to be scared of the disease. The only solution, just like COVID, is the vaccine. This respiratory syncytial virus disease only arose in 1956, and it's been attributed to an artifact of research on the polio vaccines. And so Brian Hooker, our chief scientist, has a quote in this article by Michael Neverdakis that, what an irony that there's a vaccine for a vaccine-created disease. That's what this is. RSV is a vaccine-created disease, and we now have a vaccine to prevent the vaccine-created disease.
Wow, what a great world we live in.
The hype is necessary,
let's get rid of that.
Polly,
Don't
for the
play
vaccine,
it anymore.
Right?
Stop playing, Jesus. And let's hear from Mr. Rogers before we call
up to be the mummy. Only girls can grow up to be the mummies. Only boys can grow up to be the daddies. Only girls can.
That's going to probably go on the soundboard at some point. Oh, boy. I'm having fun. I'm having fun tonight, folks. All right. So, one last thing before we leave, before we call it a night. It's, not looking like we're going to get anybody on the phone lines this evening. Well, so that's okay. You know, if you want to call in, here's the last shout out that I'll let you get on board with calling in. Come on over to the Discord, go down to the voice channels, call into the show, and I'll see you in there, I hope. And let's see if I'm even doing that out right on that side of things. Yeah, no one's there yet. But if you're having trouble finding a way to the Discord, you can go to freeyourmindne.com/live, and there is an option there that you'll be able to join the Discord, and you'll be able to call into the show, and we'll be able to speak live on air together. So that's the last shout out for that this evening. See what happens. I would prefer that if you do call in that you use an actual name. It doesn't have to be your full name. It probably wouldn't even have to be your real name. It could just be, you know, your name could be Bob, just go by Peter, so I can at least, you know, clarify who I'm calling on. Anyways, one last thing that I want to talk about before I sign off for the night is a new show that's coming up, and it's me, and we're gonna give it a shot. Me and Sean McCann are gonna be co-hosting a show where we don't have glitchy cameras, right? Because who likes glitchy cameras? But we're gonna be co-hosting a show together, and we're gonna try to do this once a month, where we big face, ooh, and then, sorry, I gotta do this live, folks. You know, just the pains of live broadcasting. Sometimes you just overlook stuff, but that's okay. You push forward, and you get through it. Let's get that down where we want it to be. I think like something like that. You put it right there. That's fine. That's fine for now. We'll reassess. Remake the scene in a minute after this. So what we have here is the Black Pill Digest. That's going to be the name of the show. And I guess the camera doesn't want to cooperate. It's probably been doing that all night. Anywho, yeah, that's annoying as fuck. Sorry, but I'll get on that. It won't happen. It won't happen next week. So I'm tongue tied now. We're going to be debuting this show 1 week from today. So it's going to be same time, same place, just a different format. And it's going to be a roundtable discussion format. And we're going to be the idea of the Black Pill Digest is that, yeah, it can seem pretty doom and gloom out there. You know, it can seem like the whole world is against you. And, you know, it's high time that we kind of take these stories that are really doom and gloom, and we kind of unpack them to see what they mean, and to see what we can do about it. You know, some of the occult origins of a lot of the stuff that goes on, and we're going to kind of try to help mentally prepare people and help mentally fortify people so they can be better prepared to handle these situations on their own should they choose to participate in this kind of educational type of show that we're going to try to plan on doing. So it's a very interesting idea, and I'm looking forward to it, and I hope that we get a lot of people that tune in for this, because again, it's going to be like a roundtable format. So it's going to be like Sean and I and a few other people are going to be joining us. I believe we have Ivan from Phoenix. He's going to be on the first show. And, man, I forget who else, but there's going to be a couple of other people there as well. So it's going to be a fun time. And I'm really looking forward to it. So there. And I guess that's all we got for this evening. Still nobody in the call-in, so that's okay. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So anyways, guys, so thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here for this episode of A Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth. I'm your host, James Cordiner, and my website is freeyourmindne.com. And, like I like to try to sign off with every broadcast, doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it is still the right thing to do. And we should be doing that just because it's the right thing to do. Not because you're going to get a reward or some silly trophy, but just because it's the right thing to do. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Agape, and I'll see you next week.